How many times have you checked the weather app, seen high pressure or a cold front, and just decided, well, today's going to be a bust? Let's be honest, you've probably done it this month. You get to the lake and you've already lost before you've even tied on a lure. Today, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why the weather is not the boss you think it is. I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand that the real reason you're not catching fish might be staring back at you in the mirror. There's one specific mindset shift that separates the 10% of anglers who catch fish all winter from the 90% who just get cold. So let me know right now in the comments. Do you believe weather is the #1 factor in winter fishing? Yes or no? Let's get into it. For generations, we've been told the same things. Grandpa always said, "Fish don't bite when the wind's from the east." We hear it at the bait shop. The pressure is too high, they'll have lockjaw today. It's easy to believe because it makes sense on the surface. And more importantly, it gives us a perfect excuse. It protects our ego. It's much easier to say the fish weren't biting than to say I couldn't figure out how to make them bite. This way of thinking puts us in a passive role. We become victims of the conditions. But the truth is, fish still have to eat. They live in that water 24/7. They are perfectly adapted to it. We're the ones who are out of our element, and we're the ones who need to adapt. This video is about taking back control. Let's start with the biggest one, the weather scapegoat. Yes, weather matters. It influences fish behavior, absolutely. A major cold front can reposition fish. High pressure can make them less aggressive. But influence is not a rule. It's not an on-off switch for feeding. Think of it like this. On a cold, rainy day, you might not want to go for a long walk, but you're still going to go to the kitchen to eat lunch. Fish are the same. Their world changes and they react. But their fundamental need to feed doesn't just disappear. The problem is that we, the anglers, see the weather as a stop sign. We should be seeing it as a roadmap that tells us where the fish have moved and how we need to present our bait. It's information, not a verdict. Now, let's talk about your energy level. Not the fish's. It's January. It's cold. Your fingers are numb. Let's be real. You are not performing at your peak. The cold makes you slow and frankly a little lazy. Your casting accuracy suffers. You're less willing to make that extra 10-foot walk down the bank to get a better angle. You're less likely to retie your leader after it gets a little frayed. You spend more time with your hands in your pockets than you do actively working your lure. You're thinking about the warm truck and a hot coffee. This subtle decrease in your own personal performance has a massive impact. The fish's metabolism has slowed, so they won't chase a sloppy presentation. Your margin for error is razor thin, and your own physical discomfort is making you commit more errors than you realize. Let's bust the high-pressure myth once and for all. The classic thinking is that high barometric pressure pushes down on the fish's air bladder and makes them uncomfortable, so they stop eating. This is a massive oversimplification. While the pressure does have an effect, fish don't just shut down and wait for a low-pressure system to roll in. What they do is reposition. High stable pressure often pushes fish tighter to cover or structure. They'll tuck themselves right into the thickest part of a brush pile or get snug against a rock. They will also often suspend or sit on the bottom in deeper water where the pressure changes are less pronounced. They aren't gone. They've just moved to their safe space. The angler who blames the pressure and keeps casting in the same old spots will blank. The angler who uses it as a clue to look deeper and tighter to cover will find them. Picture this common January scene. There are two boats on a small lake. It's a bluebird sky day, high pressure, just after a cold front. In boat number 1, an angler is anchored up. He's casting a jerkbait out over a main lake point he always fishes. After 30 minutes, he sighs, sips his coffee, and says to his buddy, "They're just not biting today. Pressure's too high." Now look over at boat number 2. That angler is moving constantly. He's using his electronics, idling over deep creek channel bends. He's not casting. He's watching his screen. He finally marks a small group of fish suspended 25 feet down over a brush pile in 35 feet of water. He uses his trolling motor to get directly over them and drops a small spoon right on their heads. The guy in boat number 1 is fishing based on a memory. The guy in boat number 2 is fishing the conditions of that exact moment. Who do you think gets the bite? Now let's talk about your hands and what they're doing. Your summer power fishing tactics are completely and utterly useless in the cold. Trying to burn a spinnerbait or rip a lipless crankbait through 40-degree water is a waste of time. Subtlety is everything now. This means you have to downsize your gear. Switch to a lighter pound test line, maybe 6-pound fluorocarbon instead of 15. A lighter line is less visible and allows your bait to have a more natural action. Downsize your lure. Instead of a 5-inch Senko, try a 3-inch Ned rig. The lure's action needs to be subtle too. A bait with a wide aggressive wobble is often ignored. You want something with a tighter, more subdued action. These small changes make a gigantic difference because a lethargic winter bass is not going to waste energy chasing something that looks unnatural or moves too fast. It's looking for an easy, realistic meal. Many anglers here fish slow in the winter and make a critical mistake. They go too slow, to the point of doing nothing at all. They'll throw out a jig or a plastic worm and just let it sit there for a minute or more. They call it dead sticking. But here's the secret. Dead sticking is not nothing sticking. A truly dead bait on the bottom looks unnatural. The secret to a good dead stick presentation is imparting micro movements. You are not trying to move the bait across the bottom. You are trying to make it quiver in place. These are tiny, almost imperceptible twitches you create by gently shaking the rod tip with a slack line. All you want is for that little plastic tail to wiggle ever so slightly. It's this tiny sign of life that triggers a fish that has been staring at your bait for 30 seconds to finally eat it. Think about those micro movements we just discussed. A lethargic bass might swim over to your lure out of curiosity and just watch it. It's sitting there, a foot away, just staring. If the lure is completely motionless, the fish often loses interest and swims away. But if that lure suddenly gives a tiny, almost pathetic little twitch, it mimics a dying baitfish or a struggling crawfish. This is a powerful trigger. It screams easy meal. We're not trying to attract fish from 20 feet away with a huge action. We are trying to convince a fish that is already in the red zone, right in front of your lure, to open its mouth. This requires immense patience. You have to learn to be comfortable with a long pause, and then have the discipline to only impart the tiniest bit of life into the lure. It's a game of inches and seconds. This leads to a much bigger point. In winter, you have to slow your brain down. Our minds are wired for action and results. When we fish in the summer, we are casting, retrieving, moving, and getting feedback in the form of bites, or at least seeing followers. In January, you get almost no feedback. The silence can be maddening. Your instinct is to speed up, to change lures every 5 minutes, to move spots constantly, thinking they must not be here. You have to fight that instinct. You must force yourself to fish more slowly and deliberately than feels natural. Count to 30 between twitches of your jig. Make 10 more casts to a spot you're sure is empty. Slowing down your physical actions starts with slowing down your mind and trusting the process. Patience isn't just a virtue in winter fishing, it's the entire strategy. Here is one of the most common and fatal flaws I see every winter. Anglers are fishing their best summer spots. You are stuck in a rut, fishing memories instead of reality. That shallow flat where you caught them all summer long? It's probably a barren wasteland now. The laydown in 2 feet of water? It's likely empty. Fish, especially bass, migrate in the winter. They are seeking 2 things: stable water temperatures and a food source. This almost always means they move to deeper water. They'll pull out to main lake points. They'll sit in creek channel bends, and they'll suspend over deep structure. They are looking for verticality. A steep bluff wall is a classic winter spot because a fish can move from 30 feet deep to 10 feet deep to feed by only moving a short distance vertically, saving precious energy. Let's expand on that idea of verticality. This is a crucial concept. In the summer, a bass might see your lure from 15 feet away and swim horizontally to come and crush it. In the winter, its strike zone might only be the size of a basketball. That fish is not going to move 5 feet to the left or right to chase your bait. It's conserving every ounce of energy it has. This is why a vertical presentation is so deadly in the winter. Things like drop shots, small jigging spoons, and Ned rigs fished directly below the boat are killer. You need to drop the lure right on their heads. This makes finding the fish with your electronics the most important part of the battle. Casting and retrieving covers horizontal water. In winter, you need to be thinking vertically. You're not searching for fish with your lure. You're finding them with sonar and then catching them. Let's create a clear mental image of this vertical fishing concept. Imagine you're out on the water and your sonar lights up. You've marked a nice school of fish suspended at 30 feet, right off the edge of a deep channel. The old you might stop the boat 50 feet away and try to cast a crankbait or a jig past them and drag it through them. The lure would only be in their strike zone for a few seconds. The new you, the winter-adapted angler, uses the spot lock on your trolling motor to position your boat directly over top of them. You select a small, heavy jigging spoon and you watch your sonar as you drop it straight down. You can literally see the lure descending towards the fish on the screen. You stop it a foot above their heads, give it a few short hops, and then you see one of the marks on your screen rise up to meet your lure. That is how you effectively target lethargic winter fish. This brings us to a tough question. Are you ignoring your electronics? For many weekend anglers, the fish finder is just a depth finder and a water temperature gauge. You turn it on and then you ignore it, proceeding to just cast at the bank like you always do. In summer, you can get away with that. There are enough aggressive fish shallow that you can stumble into a few. In winter, fishing without actively using your electronics is like trying to find your keys in the dark. It's pure luck. You need to be actively looking for bait fish. You need to be looking for those subtle changes in bottom composition. You need to be hunting for those schools of fish suspended in the middle of nowhere. If you're not using your side scan and down scan to find the fish before you ever make a cast, you are putting yourself at a massive, massive disadvantage. Let's talk about the comfort zone problem. The cold makes us creatures of comfort. We park at the boat ramp and fish the first 100 yards of bank because it's easy and we don't want to run the big motor when it's 20 degrees outside. If you're a bank angler, you walk to the spot that has a clear casting lane and is a short walk from the car. We are subconsciously choosing our fishing spots based on our own comfort, not on where the fish are likely to be. The best winter spots are often the least convenient. They might be on a windblown point, or require a long run across the lake, or a tough walk through the woods. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. The fish don't care if you're cold. You have to make the conscious decision to fish the high percentage spots, even if they are the most uncomfortable spots. Another trap anglers fall into is the lure color fallacy. You're sitting there, staring into your tackle box, agonizing over whether to use the green pumpkin jig or the black and blue one. You spend 10 minutes debating it. Let me tell you a secret. In most winter situations, it barely matters. The water is often colder and has a bit of stain to it. Visibility is reduced. What matters 100 times more than the exact shade of green is the lure's profile, its size, its rate of fall, and the subtle vibration it puts out. A fish isn't deciding to eat based on a perfect color match. It's reacting to a silhouette and a presentation that looks like an easy meal. Instead of changing colors every 10 casts, you should be focused on changing your retrieve. Try a longer pause. Try a smaller hop. Focus on the how, not the what. So if color isn't the priority, what is? Let's talk about scent. This is one of the most underrated tools in a winter angler's arsenal. Think about the fish's metabolism. It's slow, its movements are slow. It's not in a reactive chasing mood. It's in an investigative mood. A fish might see your lure, slowly swim over to it and just inspect it for a while. In this scenario, scent can be the deciding factor. A lure that looks right but smells like plastic, and human hands might get rejected. A lure that has the added appeal of a natural baitfish or crawfish scent can be just enough to convince that hesitant fish to open its mouth and taste it. This is not a magic bullet, but it's a simple detail that can tip the odds in your favor when bites are few and far between. Now for a really hard truth. You are probably getting more bites than you think you are. You're just missing them. A winter bite is rarely that classic thump you feel in the summer. A cold water fish will often just lightly inhale the bait. The feeling transmitted up your line might be incredibly subtle. Sometimes it just feels mushy or heavy. Other times the only indication is that your line, which should be sinking, suddenly goes slack as a fish picks up the lure and swims upwards. Or you might just feel a tiny tick that feels like you're dragging over a pebble. 90% of anglers dismiss these feelings as the bottom or a piece of weed. The 10% who are successful have trained themselves to understand that anything that feels different is a fish. The motto is simple. When in doubt, set the hook. Hook sets are free. To detect those subtle bites, you need to become a professional line watcher. This is a skill that separates the good from the great. When you're fishing a jig, a Ned rig, or any bottom contact bait with even a little bit of slack in your line, your eyes are more important than your hands. You need to be intensely focused on the point where your line enters the water. Watch for any unnatural movement. Does it twitch sideways? Does it jump? Does it start moving slowly to the left or right when it should be still? All of these are signs of a bite. A high-visibility braided line with a fluorocarbon leader is a great setup for this. The bright line acts as a strike indicator. Stop just feeling for the bite and start looking for it. You will be shocked at how many fish you've been missing. Let's address the gear excuse. It's easy to watch videos online and think you need a $20,000 boat with 3 giant graphs and 50 rods on the deck to catch fish in the winter. That's just not true. Is good gear helpful? Of course. A sensitive graphite rod will help you feel those subtle bites. Good electronics will help you find fish, but they are not a substitute for skill and knowledge. An angler with a 12-foot John boat and a single cheap fish finder who understands winter fish location and behavior will outfish an angler in a brand new base boat who is still trying to fish his summer patterns. Don't let a lack of expensive gear become another excuse. The most important tool you have is your brain. It's your willingness to learn, adapt, and change your approach that will make the biggest difference. We need to reframe how we think about bad weather. A lot of anglers think that a nasty, cold, overcast, drizzly day is a bad day to fish. In reality, a stable weather pattern, even if it's a bad one, is often far better for fishing than a volatile, rapidly changing one. Fish are creatures of habit. If you have 3 or 4 straight days of the same cold, high-pressure conditions, the fish will acclimate. They'll settle into a predictable pattern. They might be deep on a bluff end, for example, and they'll stay there. The angler who complains about the 3rd straight day of high pressure is missing the point. The angler who recognizes the stability and understands the pattern the fish are in is the one who will succeed. It's the wild swings in weather that are truly tough to fish, not the stable bad days. Finally, we come to the most powerful factor of all, the confidence factor. Let's be brutally honest with ourselves. When you launch the boat on a cold January morning, you often go out expecting not to catch much. You've already accepted defeat. This mindset is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you don't expect to get bit, your focus is shot. You're not watching your line as closely. You're not making precise casts. You're not retying your knot as often. You're just going through the motions. An angler who goes out with the mindset of, the fish are in here, and I am going to solve the puzzle of how to catch them today, is a dangerous angler. Confidence breeds focus, and focus leads to execution. You have to believe you can catch them before you ever will. So let's bring it all together. We've established that it's not the cold front or the barometer reading that's really stopping you. It's fishing your summer memories in the dead of winter. It's using power techniques on lethargic fish. It's missing those subtle bites that you'd never feel in July. In short, it's blaming the sky instead of looking at what's in your hands and in your head. The real aha moment, the turning point, is when you stop seeing the weather as a stop sign and start seeing it as a roadmap. The weather is giving you clues. It's telling you where the fish will likely be and how they will likely behave. This simple shift in perspective changes everything. It turns you from a passive victim of the elements into an active hunter who uses the conditions as another tool in your arsenal. That is how you catch fish when nobody else is. Thank you so much for watching. If this changed how you think about winter fishing, do me a favor and hit that like button. And make sure you're subscribed, because we're always busting old fishing myths here. Now, for the final question, what's the one weather rule you've always followed that you're going to question on your next trip? Drop it in the comments below. I want to hear all about it.